explain to us what you're doing here, Mike.
Well, we just finished inspecting the valve body on this car. We're changing the clutch. This is getting a Datsun 10 plate, replacing, I think the factory is 6 plate. So sometimes we go with 8 plates, but it's very typical for us to use a 10 plate replacement. We've really got those down as far as like the drivability. We can put a lot more torque load into the car. We can run the factory transmission control maps, and it's kind of the way to go. We've been doing quite a few of these with Datsun. Actually, I'll show you one of the new ones we're going to be putting in this. What I always do is I turn the tranny over, completely empty the fluid. I do a full inspection. I take the valve body apart. I've just gone through the solenoids looking for any debris. Now, if I find too much debris, if I find what I consider a reasonable amount, a couple of specks, I clean the filters, and that's a normal thing. But if I see too much material, I got to go deeper in the tranny. This particular one, the fluid didn't look bad, and there was really very little debris. I cleaned the filters out. I'm now reinstalling the valve body, converted an engine stand into a transmission stand, because they're usually the same, one and the same. Yeah, go ahead and put that down there and open it up. We'll be installing this pin right now. You can see if it comes in from Datsun.
That's clever, because the yoke is the same bolt pattern.
Yeah, well actually, this is part of the Datsun pan. Okay, it's had one before. I didn't like the way that it was done. I'm redoing a lot of this. And I'm redoing the clutch. There's been a lot of updates in the clutch openers. I didn't like a lot of the installs with the Datsun clutch. People aren't paying attention to the seal in the clutch pack in the front end. There's an area here, if you look closely. This area, we polish this because there's an O-ring that the clutch cover engages in. This is your oil pump, and then there's another gear, and there's a timing mark, and we line these up. I typically do them straight up so I can really pay attention, and I do all the timing marks at 12 o'clock because they are timed. And what I do is, this one came in because it had a clutch put in. It was an older one. It's had some tuning issues that we're resolving with really putting the right turbos and other parts on the car. But this particular one had also a leaking pump seal. And it wasn't the actual pump seal. You can see it's got 2 shafts. It's a dual clutch, the PDK. But they had glued the original O-ring in, which that trick doesn't work. We have sourced the O-rings that the factory was using. We install it with a brand new O-ring with a little dab of silicone lube on it. Pop them right in, they last forever. So yeah, this one just needs a bit of TLC and inspection, and it'll be running 1,000 horsepower here very shortly, and that'll be in track trim. We typically run these at about 830 to the tire on track application. It's very typical for us. That's how we built our Optima car, and that's how we build our customer cars.
Like a Swiss watch in here. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, it's really pretty neat. You'll notice also one thing about the PDKs. Look at the size of that oil pump.
Right.
I mean, that baby. You know, if you really look at it's almost a 1-to-1 ratio with the crankshaft. So this thing really, it's unbelievable. When you service a PDK, as soon as we start the engine, when we service it, we fill it with fluid, right? We get it up to the level mark. We screw the fill plug back in. We fire up the engine only for a moment, just long enough for the crankshaft to catch. And as soon as you do, it'll already suck. This pump, I have no idea of how many liters per hour it's moving, but it's something flipping horrendous. Because it's amazing how much oil volume is displaced by that pump. That's a huge pump.
Yeah,
gearbox.
That's insane.
That's like an engine
design.
That's like bigger than an engine oil pump. That baby flows some displacement, but it's controlling a lot of things. You got the clutch pack, you got the gear. You know, there's a lot going on here.
go.
Another thing we'll be doing is we always service the gearbox at the same time. We're not pulling it off and inspecting this particular one. We weren't mentioned of a problem with the differential, but we're going to be servicing it. We always run 8140 inside the gearbox for on the differential section. They can handle much more rigorous activity. And our typical customers are doing track day events, and so we've really done this in our race cars and the road cars. We don't run the 7590. It's a better GL5 fluid.
All right. Thanks, Mike. TPC from standard PDK service to 1000+ horsepower track build for your PDK needs.